All right. Well, I think I understand how this thing works. Just 2 buttons, so I can't even mess it up too much. Two. Yeah. So Barksdale is a base metal exploration company focused primarily on Arizona. Today I'll just give you a quick presentation, kind of the highlights and overview. Hopefully there'll be a minute or two at the end in case anybody has questions, but nevertheless, let's move on. So I will be making some forward-looking statements. Do your homework before you invest in any mining company. So Barksdale's portfolio consists of 2 collections of assets. One is within the Patagonia district of southern Arizona. That's our primary focus going forward. And then we also have an iron oxide copper gold deposit in northern Mexico called San Javier. That has an existing resource. We're undergoing a PEA on that right now, which is kind of a preliminary economic assessment to wrap some value around it. But it will not be the primary catalyst driver and focus of the company as far as our dollar allocations in the near term. Before I jump into the projects, just to give you a bit of an overview on the capital structure, we have roughly 81 million shares outstanding. I think today's stock price is 70 cents Canadian, so we're roughly $56 million market cap company. We have a little less than $6 million of cash on the balance sheet, so we're pretty well financed. And over the course of several years, we've built quite the shareholder list. We have roughly 70% of our stock in the hands of our top 40 investors, which includes some pretty world-class, both corporates, institutions, and high net worth investors, including Tech Resources, which holds just less than 10% of our stock, Crescat Capital and US Global out of the United States, which combined probably have something on the order of 15-16% of our stock, and other high net worth notables, including Eric Sprott and a couple of others. Our share price performance over the past year has been quite good. We're getting closer to some key catalysts. It's exciting the market. Our shareholders are getting, all aroused, and our share price performance has been trending up as a consequence. We're kind of in a bit of a consolidation phase right now with a couple of folks trying to build some positions. So hopefully over the next month, as we get to our key driver, which I'll talk about in a minute, we'll continue to get the stock into good hands and make it a bit springy once we get to the key catalysts. I won't go into the management. Feel free to go through this at your leisure, given that I only have 10 minutes. But here are the 2 districts that we're working in. So at the bottom of the page, you can see San Javier in Sonora, Mexico. That's that iron oxide copper gold system. But what we'll focus on today are the Patagonia district in the center of the photograph. It's just north of the border with Mexico. And zooming in on that district a bit more, you can see a collection of properties here in both dark blue and light gray. The dark blue ones are the ones that we control. There are roughly 6 properties that we control, with the primary one being Sunnyside, right in the middle of the page. You'll note that the gray properties that fully surround Sunnyside, or at least on the north, south, and eastern sides, those are grounds controlled by South32. It's a multi-billion-dollar diversified mining company out of Australia. They acquired all of these mining claims in a $2 billion acquisition of Arizona Mining back in 2018. The reason they did that, if I zoom in even further, is that there's a very large mineral discovery called the Taylor deposit that sits immediately adjacent to our property on the corner of their property. Now, this is a top 10 undeveloped silver asset in the world with roughly 500 million ounces of silver. And it also has tens of billions of pounds of zinc and lead, making it a top 10 undeveloped zinc and lead deposit as well. As you can see here, we have a couple of black dots with little black lines. You probably can't see much of the detail where you're sitting, but those are the original discovery holes of that Taylor system on our property. They include some quite impressive drill intercepts, such as 17 meters of 17% lead zinc, 1.3% copper, and over 10 ounces per ton silver. It's quite high grade, and it's equivalent to some of the higher grades that you see on the other side of the fence. You'll note that that deposit ends abruptly at the property boundary, which, as you all would know, doesn't happen in nature. It's just a function of what's going on with the mineral claims. So our hypothesis is that that deposit continues onto our property and that we have the rest of it. Now, we have been permitting for roughly 4 years to get onto the property to do exploration drilling. We're near the end of that process, and in the next 6 to 8 weeks, we should have a drill on the ground. I'll knock on wood there. The priority area, as you can see in that lighter blue color, is several square kilometers. So it's quite a large ground position where we think that we have the potential to build high-grade carbonate replacement tons. These are massive sulfide-style deposits that are immediately adjacent to that big yellow blob in the middle of the slide, which is the Sunnyside porphyry. It's a roughly billion-ton copper porphyry that we think was the heat engine that caused the formation of all of these mineral deposits immediately to the east of the porphyry itself. Now, if we take a slice of that page and look at it in 3D, or take a 2D slice, you can see that copper porphyry on the left-hand side of the slide, with the red blobs to the right being the carbonate replacement deposits. The blue vertical line in the middle is the property boundary, and there's roughly a 1 kilometer scale gap in between the porphyry and the edge of the property. And that's where we're looking to find high-grade resources immediately adjacent to what is ultimately going to be a very large underground mining operation. South 32 should be making a construction decision here in the next few months. At least that's what they've guided to the public. And that would be a $1.7 billion US capital spend. So the area that we're looking to explore is several square kilometers, and it wraps effectively around the porphyry. We know that we have potential for CRD mineralization to the east, north, and to the southeast. What we don't know is how much potential exists around the western side. So great potential here. We're starting with an advantage, having the historic drilling, and it should be quite exciting once we get on the ground and we start drilling here soon. And now, this isn't a Nevada neurology play. We're not 20 kilometers away from something important, and if you look along some imaginary line, everything lines up, and the stars suggest that something could be there. There's literally a fence. We're on the other side of that fence. We know that the deposit continues and that we have a portion of it. What we don't know is what's the quality of it, how much is there, and ultimately what kind of value can we unlock by finding it. And that's what we'll be testing over the next few months and maybe even the next year to see exactly how much of this world-class asset we have on our side of the fence. In addition to Arizona, which will be our primary focus, we do have a copper asset in Mexico as well. Like I said before, we won't be spending too much of our dollars down there, but we will be de-risking it from the standpoint of completing a preliminary economic assessment on the asset. This is a roughly 2-hour drive east of the capital city of Hermosillo. It's located along the National Highway. It's very great infrastructure, and it's a very simple deposit. It's roughly tabular in shape, outcrops, and from a mining perspective, it's quite compelling because you just mine the top of the mountain. The style of mineralization is oxide copper, which is amenable to heap leaching. So if you mine it, put it onto a lined pad, and trickle sulfuric acid over it, it'll dissolve the copper that you can then plate into cathodes on site. So we're completing a preliminary economic assessment currently, and that'll be done in the next couple of weeks and out to the market sometime probably in June. And San Javier, which is the asset, has several prospects. You see Cerro Verde in the background. That's where we have the resource. That's where we're doing the preliminary economic assessment. There are other areas which have defined copper drill intercepts. The deposit tends to look like pearls on a string. So we have several additional areas of potential, including Mesa Grande and La Trinidad. So lots of potential in that district. The rest of the district, I should ad is controlled by one of our larger shareholders, Cisco Development Corp. So we have friends in the area. But since this presentation is short, I've gone through it quite quickly. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to myself or Terry Ann Willicke, either for a meeting here or send us an email or give us a call. We'd be more than happy to reach out to you. And again, this is Barksdale Resources. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rick. Are there any questions? We have time for that. Yep.
On the slide it mentioned you have a draft permit for starting drilling. Is it final? Or?
Yeah, so we got the draft permit at the end of January. That triggers a few kind of compulsory permitting tasks that the Forest Service needs to complete. So they should be done with that process by the end of May, and we're expecting the permit at some time in June.
How many meters do you plan to drill once you have it?
The initial program will be something on the order of 16,000 meters.
How many drills?
Up to 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question, what are the costs of drilling?
It depends on how many meters we drill and what the depth of the targets are.
Give us an idea.
Yeah, if we bring in a rotary drill rig, we could have costs that are kind of on the order of all in $50 or $60 per foot. So, you know, $100, probably less than $100 a meter. But if we drill core for the entire length of the drill hole, it could be probably on the order of $200 to $300 per meter. Yeah.
More questions?
How deep was the target? I'm trying to picture it again.
Yeah, so the appropriate stratigraphy, it dips to the northeast and it plunges to the northwest at about 20 degrees. And so in the southern part of our property, that would be something on the order of 900 to 1,000 meters. On the far northern part of the property, it'd be something on the order of maybe 1,800 meters. We'll be starting on the shallower end where the high grade structural trends kind of go roughly east-west. So we'll be looking at something between, I would say, 1,000, 1,500 meters. As many as we can get in.
What would you expect to average depth?
I would say most of the holes, if we're targeting the deeper skarns and CRD, would probably be minimum 1,600 meters. But the length of the hole will depend on our technical abilities. So the plan is to drill a mother hole and then have daughter holes come off of that, which are shorter and stops you from re-drilling the top, 1,000 meters over and over and over again. So that's why I'm a little hesitant on giving you true costs and true depths, because it depends on how successful we are with that wedging program. Yeah.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you
you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.